The car that sent Max Verstappen sliding into the gravel at Silverstone wasn't a surprise to him. In fact, it was the very car he had already warned Red Bull he didn't want to race. The day before, he delivered a message that, at the time, sounded almost unbelievable. There's no point. Looking back now, that may have been the defining quote of the entire weekend. Because if Verstappen's instincts were right, Red Bull didn't just throw away a podium at Silverstone. They may have given their four-time world champion the clearest reason yet to start thinking about life beyond the team. And here's what most of the post-race coverage missed. The crash wasn't the real story. The real story began 24 hours earlier, with what Verstappen said before the race, and with the decision Red Bull made despite hearing it. To understand Sunday, you have to rewind to Saturday. Verstappen could only qualify 7th. It wasn't because he overcooked a lap or made a costly mistake. The RB simply lacked straight-line speed, leaving him unable to fight at the front. When he climbed out of the car, there were no excuses, no attempts to put a positive spin on things. Instead, he delivered one of the most revealing comments of the season. "There's actually no point racing like this tomorrow if we keep the car the same. I'd rather change everything." Take a moment to think about what that means. This is Max Verstappen, a driver who's built a reputation on wrestling difficult cars into impossible results, standing at one of Formula One's biggest events, and openly saying he'd rather overhaul the entire setup, accept a pit lane start, and gamble on something completely different than race the car as it was. That isn't frustration in the heat of the moment. That's a driver who had already lost faith in the package before the lights even went out. That is not a sulk. That is a warning. And it wasn't vague. He pointed straight at the power unit, the new for 2026 Red Bull engine. No top speed on any straight all session. He told them the balance wasn't coming together. He effectively asked for a reset. Now hold on to that, because what happens next is the bit that should genuinely worry Red Bull, because on Sunday, the car went out largely the way he'd complained about it. And for a while, it didn't matter, because Max Verstappen is Max Verstappen. He carved his way forward, and by the closing laps, he was running third. A podium from 7th in a car he'd publicly written off. You could almost hear Red Bull's PR department getting ready to call it a heroic recovery. Then, on lap 48, at Stowe, one of the fastest corners on the calendar, the back of the car just left him. A snap of oversteer. No warning. And he's a passenger into the gravel. Race over. Podium gone. Safety car out. And that's the race frozen, which, by the way, is how Charles Leclerc backed into his first Silverstone win. But that's a different video. Here's why that corner matters so much. This is the second time in 8 days that this has happened. 8 days earlier, in qualifying in Austria, the exact same thing. The car snapped away from him at high speed and put him in the barriers. And after Silverstone, Verstappen told Sky what the cause was. The rear wing isn't closing properly. When it doesn't close, you lose a chunk of downforce, and the car spins off the track. Same mechanism. Same failure. 2 weekends running. Now sit with what that means from the cockpit. Twice in 8 days, in the fastest corners on the track, the car has tried to throw him off the road at speed. His words: "One time okay, but 2 times, it's becoming dangerous for myself." And this is the 4-time champion. The guy who never complains about danger. Telling you, he no longer trusts the thing underneath him. I've watched a lot of Verstappen interviews. I have never heard him talk about his own car like it's a liability to his safety. That's new. And it's a problem money can't fix quickly. The radio told the same story before the crash even happened. Laps earlier, he's already on there telling the team the downshifts are a mess, that there's no way the deployment is behaving normally. He is narrating the car falling apart in real time. So when it finally lets go at Stowe and he unloads, swearing at the car, telling them it's unbelievable, that isn't a driver losing his temper over one bad moment. That's a driver whose warning just came true in the most dangerous way possible. And this is where it stops being about one race and starts being about his future because of the timing. Let me lay out the numbers because they're brutal. After Silverstone, Verstappen sits 7th in the championship on 76 points. George Russell is 2nd on 154. That is a 7-8 point gap, and there are only a couple of races left before Formula One breaks for the summer. Why does that specific gap at this specific moment matter more than anything else? Because of what's reportedly written into his contract. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is reported, not officially confirmed by Red Bull or by Verstappen's camp. But it's been reported widely, and his own manager has confirmed that exit clauses exist in the deal. The reported trigger is this. If Verstappen is not in the top 2 of the Drivers' Championship by the summer break, he can leave. His contract is supposed to run to the end of 2028, but that clause is a trapdoor. And after Sunday, 7th, with 78 points to make up in 2 races, the top 2 is gone. Mathematically, realistically, gone. So follow the chain. He warns them the car isn't good enough. They can't fix it. The car then fails in a way that cost him points he desperately needed. And those lost points are the very thing that reportedly unlocks his escape route. You could not write a crueler sequence for Red Bull if you tried. The failure didn't just cost a podium. It may have cost them him. And if you think I'm reaching, look at what happened in the paddock right after the race, because his team didn't wait. Within minutes of the DNF, Verstappen's father, Jos, and his longtime manager, Raymond Vermeulen, were seen outside the Red Bull hospitality suite in conversation with team principal Laurent Mekies. We don't know exactly what was said in that meeting, and I'm not going to pretend I do. But the optics are hard to ignore. The champion's inner circle at the door of the team's leadership the moment the car failed again. Then, there's the McLaren thread. And I'll be straight with you about how messy this one is. McLaren boss Zak Brown has admitted that Verstappen's camp held talks with McLaren. His phrasing at Silverstone: "They didn't go anywhere. I've got my 2 drivers. Nothing to report." But here's the tangle. Vermeulen has denied holding those talks, and Verstappen himself refused to comment at all. So you've got the McLaren boss saying talks happened, the manager playing it down, and the driver saying nothing. When the stories don't line up like that, it usually means something is going on that nobody wants on the record yet. That's my read. Take it as a read. What isn't in dispute is Mekies' own position. He said Max wants to continue with the team, but he added the condition that tells you everything. Max needs a fast car to be happy. That's not a boss reassuring you the marriage is fine. That's a boss admitting the whole thing depends on something the team currently can't deliver. And Mekies did something else after the race that I keep coming back to. He apologized publicly. His words: "We had an issue with the rear wing, so it's on us. We apologize to Max." Think about how rare that is. Team principals deflect. They talk about learnings and reviews. Mekies walked out and put it squarely on the team in front of everyone. You don't do that unless you know exactly how thin the ice is. Unless you know the driver has every reason to be furious. And you cannot afford to make it worse. So, did it work? Here's Verstappen's own answer when asked about talking things through with Red Bull management.